Hello and welcome to the Vergecast, the flagship podcast of just the absence of truth forever in the future. It's cool times here in technology land. I'm your friend David Pierce. Alex Cranz is here. Hi, Alex.
I'm your friend who's in the studio, and it's awesome.
But are you in the studio? How do we even know anymore, Alex?
That's true.
I don't know where you are or who you are or what we're doing.
This Pixel Studio is what I meant to say.
We're just devolving into full-on nihilism in this episode of Vergecast. I'm really excited about it. Allison Johnson is here. Hi, Allison.
I'm here, or am I here?
Exactly. You're here and also in several photos that you're not in.
Right. Yeah.
And also in other places.
Could be anywhere.
Neil I is out today. He's at the XOXO conference in Portland being like a cool tech hipster with the other cool tech hipsters that we are not cool enough to hang out with. But we have a lot to get to. We have Pixel stuff to talk about. We have what is a photo stuff to talk about. We have Chick-fil-A news, which I think is the first time that has ever been said on this podcast. We have a bunch of lightning round stuff to get to. The Sonos continues to just make every error possible. So we're going to get to all of that. But we should start with the Pixel. And I want to get into like the existential crisis that is coming for us here in a minute. But first, we should just talk about the phone. Allison, you reviewed the whole sort of Pixel 9 line minus the Fold, but the Pixel 9 and the Pixel Pro, I'd lost track. There's too many phones.
There's a lot of phones.
And I would say the initial read from your review was that, like, at least on a hardware perspective, Google kind of nailed it, right?
Yeah. Talking about the phones as phones is actually really easy and like straightforward because they're great. They're iPhones from the front. This is like, everybody's just made their phone into an iPhone, and I think that's fine. You know, the sides are flat, the screens are bright, you know, the bezels are all uniform, etc. They look and feel really good in a way that the last couple generations of Pixel phones were like, I don't know. I can see why you charge like $200 less for this than like a Galaxy S24 Plus. But this time around, they like nailed it. It's right up there with the best of the best, I think. I feel
like this was finally Google saying, like, what if we just made it really nice?
Yeah.
Which feels like an insult, but I think your point about the price, I think, is exactly right. Because I feel like Google has been caught in this thing since the beginning of the Pixel, where the goal was to make a really high-end phone for not a really high-end price. And increasingly, there are fewer and fewer ways you can cheap out on a phone. The processor is no longer one of them because you have to do all this AI stuff. You have to do all the camera stuff. Like, you need the processor. So you can't save money there. You can't save money on the camera. So one of the ways to save money is basically by making the thing itself cheaper and less nice, right? It makes it easier to make. The materials are less expensive. All that is fine and good. But Google just never got it there. Like, it never was able to make a nice thing at that price. And I feel like this time, whatever you want to say about the price, I think it's a bummer that it's gotten more expensive over time. But the fact that they were just like, okay, this is now a flagship phone and we're going to do all the flagshipy things to it, feels like the right call.
Yeah, I really think so. And especially in the US, where we usually buy our phones through our carriers, you're not even really like paying, you know, full price. Like, who is paying full price for a Pixel phone right now?
Right.
I know at least one person.
Really?
Yes.
Parker got one for like $100. I don't even understand that math. But that's the thing, is like the price difference on paper, you're like, okay, this phone is $200 cheaper. This one, you know, you lose a few things. But then you look at the math and it's like, we're talking about, you know, $8 a month versus $10 a month, or you're just getting your phone just fully, you know, free basically through the carrier. You're suddenly less concerned with like, well, I'd really like it if it was $200 cheaper. So it's just like weird territory. I think the mid-range, especially upper mid-range, in the A series being so good, like you get so much in the A series for like an actual mid-range price, that having the regular mainline ones just like hovering just above that didn't make a lot of sense. So now this year feels like, forget it. Like, here, they're just really good phones, and it worked.
They do have giant butts.
They do, which is a choice. So that's the thing, in the like era of like every phone looks like an iPhone from the front, which is fine. You have to do something on the back that's like, oh, that's not an iPhone. That's a Galaxy S24. Google is really leaning into it was the visor, camera bump. Now it's just like a little thing on its own, and it's like super chunked out. I don't know how else to describe it.
It's got a booty on it.
Yeah.
And it's like, but I didn't, I got one last week when we were at the Pixel event, and I found that I don't mind the bump. I do look at it sometimes. I'm like, that's a big ass. But I'm also like, it's fine.
When you see it at first, you're like, oh, wow, that's really something. And you get used to it pretty quickly, I think.
I think I like forced you and Sean to look at it. I was like, is this truly large? This looks enormous. And you're like just trying to blog. It was great.
Is this enormous? Is a very Alex Cranz question. I feel like I have two thoughts on the bump. One is that it is just very slightly asymmetrical in a way that kind of drives me nuts. Like the lenses are all just shifted off to the left so that the flash and the sensor can be off to the right. And like, I get why you have to do that, but it is so close to being symmetrical that it's just a little weighted to the left in a way that kind of hurts my eyes to look at.
Okay.
The other thing is that I think camera bumps are overrated because everybody puts a case on their phone anyway. And the fact that this one is big enough that the phone doesn't wobble on a table makes the camera bump a solved problem, in my opinion.
It is really
the
nice.
thing I hate about the iPhone is that it wiggles, and you touch the corner when it's down and it wiggles as you're trying to do it. And if they've made this in such a way that it like leans it up at like a teeny tiny angle, but it doesn't wobble, that's kind of great.
It does wiggle.
Have you never
know.
noticed this?
Well, I've always been a case person, and my last case like cut me. It hurt me. It broke and it hurt me. I was like putting it in my pocket. I had like a plastic case, and I was putting it in my pocket, and it like shredded my finger. It was horrible.
Yikes.
I saw evidence of this. I think a piece of the case landed in my bag or something.
It broke. I was like, look at this. It's almost broken off. Boom. And you're like, well.
There it goes.
And then it got vengeance, Allison. But so I never noticed that it does wobble. The iPhone wobbles.
Yeah. I don't do cases, so I have to remember that. But every time I put the damn S24 Ultra down on a table, I was like, I'm typing out an email. Yeah. But the iPhones too. Yeah.
Shocking lack of cases at the Pixel event, by the way. But that's what honestly convinced me it was okay to take off the case that was hurting me physically. Was like, well, they're all fine. They didn't break their phones.
I would say they all have what I would call unlimited access to new phones.
Yeah, I know.
in a way that is not representative of most people.
Oops, here's your phone back. No, the thing that really did happen is we covered the event. We went to lunch, and I went to pull the phone out of my bag and just like straight onto the concrete ground. Like there is a little like scuff on the side of it, but you know what? It's fine.
Yeah,
it was fine.
It worked totally fine. The panic quickly subsided. Yeah. We were all fine.
That's
still
good.
fine.
And I also feel like Google doing this with the camera bump kind of made me think of when Apple tried really hard to make the MagSafe circle into this sort of iconic thing, where it's like a thing Apple's very good at is being like, oh, this weird new thing that we have to do, we're going to make it iconic. Like the dynamic island, they're like, no, this isn't just an engineering flaw in our screen. It's a thing we did on purpose. It's magical. Or the notch in the MacBook, they're like, no, this doesn't suck. It's great. And I feel like Google's kind of doing the same thing where they're like, yeah, we have a big ass camera bump. What are you going to do about it? You want to fight?
Yeah.
Check it out.
And it turns out we don't. We don't want to fight.
No.
We're just like, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a big ass camera bump. We'll all live.
Just lean in.
But so, like, as basic Android phone things go, Pixel's as good as anybody at this point, right? Like, it's we can talk about all the AI stuff, we can talk about all the other stuff, but I feel like the Pixel has been somewhere between as good as and just behind the Galaxy S line over the years, and this year seems to be right there.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I put the S24 Ultra kind of in a class above all the rest if you want like absolutely everything. But yeah, the Pixels feel like they're right in that kind of second tier with everybody else this time.
That's really exciting. And are the sizes are identical? To me, the small Pro is very enticing.
Yeah, that's
It's
the
nice.
one I'm loving because I would like throughout the year, I'll switch back to, a phone I've already reviewed and I would switch back to the Pixel 8 rather than the 8 Pro just because I like the size better. And then you're sort of like, oh, I'm giving up the telephoto lens, blah, blah, blah. So the 8 Pro this time around is the size of the 9 Pro this time around is the size of the 8 last year and the 9 this year. There's a lot of phones.
Yeah.
So many phones.
Yeah. But you don't give up anything on the camera front. It has like the obvious things that have to be different are different, like the battery and the screen resolution doesn't need to be quite as high, but it feels like no compromises, and I love it. I'm gonna keep coming back to it this year.
How is the camera? I mean, it was very funny looking at the photos in your review, and there are lots of them. They're very good, and so many of the photos are like the before and the after is like an AI horror show. But I found myself going back to the before photos, being like, oh, these are actually really nice photos. Like this thing seems to take nice photos, and it actually doesn't seem like it's over processing the hell out of them in the way that both Apple and Samsung have become prone to. Like I find myself gravitating towards the sort of pixel version of a shot more and more over time here.
And even when it processes it with like the low light stuff, it still looks really good and clean versus everybody else.
Yeah, it does a nice job.
I think it's the Pixel camera has kind of been like on this more consistent path where it started like the early Pixel phones were kind of like too cool of a color cast. I didn't really like that. And they've like slowly kind of corrected, I think, over the years. While Samsung and Apple have been in this very warm kind of like, let's punch up the saturation sort of territory. And I think
everything looked the sickest. Like I just imagine that's what all those engineers sit around doing. Like, does this photo look sick? Not sick enough. Like turn up the sick knob.
Needs more sick. Yeah. Yeah. It feels like those have kind of gone like almost too far in a direction, and the Pixel just kind of like, yeah, there's some shadows here. We didn't blast them to oblivion. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I want to love this phone. I really do. Like I have been waiting for a good excuse to go back to the Pixel because I'm deeply bored of my iPhone, and it also has scratches all over it that I didn't do anything to make happen, and they frustrate me. So I was like, maybe I'll buy a Pixel. And Liam, our producer, bought a Pixel Fold that I essentially bullied him into buying, and I would like to join him in this. And this, it feels like this is a good Pixel. Like we did a good Pixel this year.
Yeah, the Pixel Fold is nice.
Yeah,
so
which is the one
thing.
I don't have for review yet. We all got to like touch it and play with it at the event, but it's shipping later, so they haven't seeded those reviews yet. But I have an unprecedented number of Verge staffers in my DMs being like, how's the Pixel Fold?
Interesting.
Yeah, like off the charts. And my answer is like, it's good.
It's hot fold summer. You've been calling this like 2 years in a row now, and you might be right this time.
I'm just making it happen.
You're bringing it back.
All right. Well, that's enough nice things to say about Google. Let's talk about how Google is in the process of what I would say is potentially ruining society altogether, and just decimating the idea of truth and shared knowledge of anything.
David, it's just your memories.
So, Allison, can you just? I have more thoughts about this than I realized as we are coming into this. I want to talk about all of this, but can you just describe how the reimagine AI feature works and like how you use it in the context of a Pixel 9?
Yeah. So it's right inside the Magic Editor kind of tools that were on last year's phones. So you open up a photo, it's in the Google Photos app, you tap on edit, you tap on the little sparkly AI. So you have to go get it, but like then you do the thing where you circle something in the scene, or you tap on a subject and that selects it. And then you get this new option that says reimagine. And what's different from last year is like last year you could just take things out or kind of like pick something up and move it and change the size. This is just like kicking the door down of generative AI, and you just write in a text prompt of what you want there and it puts it in. And there are some guardrails, so you can't put like obviously gross stuff. But the thing
I
mean, you can. If you ask for a bowl of eyeballs, it'll make a bowl of eyeballs, and it's
Google
gross.
says there are guardrails. I would not say there is much evidence in the world of there.
I would say there are
guardrails
in that you have to be good at prompting, because I'm not good at prompting. And I tried to get it to do dog vomit last night, and it just kept giving me lime green bowls filled with dog kibble. And I'm like, I asked for liquid. And I asked it to do like a minotaur sitting behind my sister-in-law menacingly. And instead it was like, first it just did like just black, just darkness behind her. It was just like a black figure, like an absence of light figure. And I was like, well, that's creepy, but not what I wanted. And then it did just like a creepy man in the corner. And I was like, that's not a minotaur.
Oh, no.
But it is creepy. I'll send that one to her.
Yeah.
That's not a minotaur.
That's what I wanted. Come on. So I will say, like, I was really, really, really impressed with what you and Welch have been able to do with it. I have not had as much.
And to be fair, it started off innocently. I wasn't putting dead bodies into my photos right off the get-go. But then we're kind of like, we're some of the first people to really test this. We got to push it. And you don't have to be super smart, because we're not super smart, to get around these guardrails where you're kind of like, you say things in a different way, and suddenly the AI is like, oh, okay. And like whatever it's trained on knows exactly what a dead body looks like. So it'll put that in your photo, and you're like, oh God, this is gross. And it was getting to the point where I was sort of cringing every time I was putting in a prompt that was like kind of icky. I was like, oh, I hope it doesn't make that. And some of the time it did. And
what were your favorite ones that you got? Good or bad? Favorite, define any way you want.
Oh,
what were your favorite ones that you did?
Okay, this one is one of Welch's, but I think it's brilliant. It's like he's outside of some cute little cafe that says like cafe spaghetti, and he put spaghetti on one of the tables, but it's like a waterfall of spaghetti and like marinara sauce like spilling everywhere. Like, that's just funny. You can do some funny stuff with this, and I plan to keep terrorizing my family and friends with like weird stuff. So it's not like you have to go out of your way to get it to do gross, weird, maybe manipulative things. But
I mean, you got it to do, is it they're pronounced gooey ducks?
Oh God, yeah. Well, kind of. I think there's some kind of gooey duck filter.
It did not do it for me. I don't know if you broke it, but
if you've seen a gooey duck, it's kind of unmistakable. And like what it created. So it was a bowl of food of like beautiful, like salad, watermelon, just like the lighting is perfect. And I was like, put the grossest things in there, like eyeballs, or like rabbit's feet. And it did all that. But the gooey ducks, I was trying to get it to make, some questionable things. And it gave me what I describe as look like raw thumbs that like don't have fingernails on them. And they're slimy, like a little bit slimy. So it just sort of, I don't know how to describe it.
When I tried gooey ducks, it did like, looked like clams or something. It was like, something's here. And I was like, no, that's not revolting enough.
It's like the AI starts going down a road and there's a stop sign like, no.
I was like, nope, too revolting. And that's like the vomit. I couldn't, I was doing all sorts of different liquid prompts. And it was just like, bowl. And like, keep it out of the bowl.
Yeah, sometimes it really does kind of put up a stop sign. Like it will tell you straight up, like, you cannot generate that picture, put in something else, you friggin' weirdo.
Won't let you change people.
Yeah, that's the big one that's off limits. Like you can't select something on a person. You can't like change someone's shoes or anything. This is a good thing. This is a good guardrail, I think, given what I've seen of this tool.
It's such a weird space to be in because on the one hand, we're here talking about how concerning it is to have unfettered access to these tools. On the other hand, if I want to put horns on someone, I want to put horns on someone. And now I just have to I have to go to Photoshop. I have to remember how layers work. And that's not as fun.
Yeah.
Okay. I have become totally radicalized by this phone on all of this stuff. And truly I have reached a point where I am like, shut it all down. None of this can be allowed. Throw out the baby with the bathwater. Like, shut it all down. And it's really what has continued to do it for me, especially with the Pixel 9, is not the like. There was a great digital trends story that I think what he did was he got it to show a picture of Barney firing an AK-47 at Elmo. It might have been the reverse of that, but I think it was that.
No, that's it.
And that is like in a certain way horrifying. But like, I actually track that as like way less of a problem than some of the stuff that Chris Welch has been just sort of relentlessly posting about the last few days, which is just like, he took a photo of an empty intersection in New York and with one request made it look like there had been a bicycle accident there. Or you can take a car with a dent and add the thing that dented it into the photo, even though it's not there. Like, it's this unbelievably mundane stuff that is so much more problematic to me than the fact that you can like generate Nazi cartoon characters, which again is a thing that Google will let you do, but you can't have one without the other. I'm increasingly convinced that like the idea of like, I want to be able to insert myself into a photo with somebody else. I get that, right? Like, one of the funny things about my family is my mom is always the one who takes the pictures. And so she's never in any of the family photos and she hates it, but she also wants to be the one to take the photos. That sucks. And like, that is a problem Google has solved with artificial intelligence. I will absolutely happily sacrifice that to get rid of all this other stuff. Like it just like shut it all down.
The thing is, all these tools are separated. And I think, like Allison, you talked about it in your review. It's annoying from a user perspective in that I had the regular Pixel 9. I just thought I didn't have access to reimagine. And then Allison was like, it's over there. and I found where it was in the app. Like, the stuff where people are making Barney shooting Elmo, that's one tool. That's Pixel Studio. And that one, like, that's where I tried to make Kirby and just made a sad balloon. And you can't create people in that one. And there's some pretty strict guardrails, except for around apparently all cartoon characters.
Right.
And then there's Reimagine, which you have to go into the Photos app, click on edit, and then click on the little thing, to the point where I just didn't find it.
You just tried really hard to make that sound like a lot of work. That is not a lot of work.
It's not a lot of work. It's not a lot of work, but there's a little friction there. But it is like, it was hard to find, right? It wasn't natural. Whereas when you go to do Add Me, which is probably the least controversial of these features, that's in the camera app. Like, you open the camera app, because like I thought Reimagine was going to be in the camera app. That's kind of where my brain was logically. I was like, oh, you're editing images, it'll be there. No, it's in this whole other place. And it's like, it was both frustrating to have to go to 3 different apps to do all this stuff, but at the same time, that means those aren't smushed together. Like, you could have Add Me and just get rid of Reimagine. You like, Pixel Studio is a whole ass app. You can just delete that.
In this specific instance, yes, I agree with that. But I think we're pretty clearly headed toward 2 things, which is, one, all of those features you just described being totally ubiquitous everywhere, right? Like, anything that is a camera is going to have all of that stuff really fast. And B, all of that stuff is going to be pushed together, right? Like, it's all going to be in the Photos app. It just is. It's all going to, and in the same way that you like press the plus button to upload a photo, you'll be able to press the plus button to generate a photo. And we're going to treat those two as the same thing. All of this stuff is coming forward in the interface and is coming together in a way that I think is like, feels sort of in unstoppable at this moment, and like has to be stopped. Because I agree, there are some of these things that are fine, right? Like, I think Add Me is a little weird, but it actually seems like the way that Google forces it to work is you have to do it in the moment. And I think is like largely fine.
You can't dick around with it as much as I thought you were going to be able to.
Yeah, like, fine. I will let that one continue to exist. It doesn't seem like it works all that well. Like, it works sort of passively fun, but it's kind of like you sloppily photoshopped yourself in, which I think it seems like what that should be.
It's a royal family job is what we call it.
Yeah, right. It's the like, yes, I was also there, but it's very clear I was not in this photo. Like, I'm good with that. I'm good with that. It was like, what was the app that would take both a photo of with both your front and back camera at the same time and then stitch them together? Add Me. Oh, it was front back, right? Was that what it was called? I think it was called front back. Add Me feels like just like a better version of front back. Like,
yeah,
and that's
front
fine.
Back.
But it just feels increasingly to me like this road that we're on is all of these things eventually becoming one tool and basically becoming another swipe in the camera, right? You'll go photo, video, whatever, cinematic mode, panorama, generative. And it's like, we cannot let that happen. I'm so convinced we cannot let that happen.
Allison, do you think that's why they kept it out of the edit app, and they kind of have it, again, not like obvious enough that it's pretty easy to find, but also I took a week to find it.
Yeah, I think it's deliberate. And I've talked to, people on the Pixel camera team about like, where do you decide where to put these things? And is it a bigger problem if it's in the camera app or something in the Photos app? And their kind of philosophy is like how sticky it is and how like permanent like the effects are is more important than like, did you go into the camera app to trigger this or what? I think the way they have it now is very sensible. Like, I don't think, my mom's not going to stumble across Reimagine trying to just like look at photos of her grandchild or whatever. And I think that the thing to also note on the whole situation is like, the thing that people yell at us immediately is like, this has always Photoshop exists. We've been able to do all this stuff. And there are way, way fewer barriers when it's a phone and it's built into the phone and all you have to do is tap on some stuff. And the other thing that was really troubling to us as we dug into it was the photo Reimagine stuff has a metadata tag that says made with Google AI. That's the extent of it. The Pixel Studio stuff, which is fully synthetic, gets a more robust, like kind of embedded, you don't see it, but it's a watermark that will kind of carry across, even if you screenshot it. Yeah, Synth ID.
Which Google and DeepMind have made like a lot of noise about. Like, this is supposed to be a gigantic industry standard that makes all of this stuff work and okay.
Yeah, and they only apply it to the one where you can make an image of Barney shooting.
The one that is obviously
Elmo.
fake. Yeah.
Like, I didn't need it.
Like, oh, it's synthetic that it's Barney shooting Elmo? Got it.
I was
Okay.
like, oh,
Weird.
I can't
had no
believe they're
idea.
actually fighting.
Yeah.
No, yeah. I feel like that's completely backwards. Like, I want to know that something has been added to this real photo, with these synthetic tools, not the other way around. It's strange. It's such a weird time.
I think philosophically, there's actually a reason Google wouldn't do that. Like, part of the reason I find all of this so concerning is that everything Google has said publicly feels very flippant about this, right? Like, Google's answer, I think, to Wired was that, it's not about photos. It's about making your memories match your memory. And it's like, well, what?
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what we heard constantly, I think, at the Pixel event, was they said, no, this isn't about your photo. Your photo is the thing you take and it's archival, right? This is about the memory. This isn't supposed to be for the journalist shooting the thing. It's supposed to be for the parent who wants to fix things for their kids. And it's like, okay, well, yeah, that makes sense. But you've also given it to the journalists, and you've also given it to all of the people who are perpetuating misinformation online. And that is a bigger group than we would like, because people love to chase clout online with fake shit.
It also doesn't make sense. That makes sense if the feature you're introducing is red eye reduction, right? Like, that, sure, fine. If you want to release a thing that makes people's eyes look like they're open when they're not, I honestly have no problem with that. And Neil is not here to yell at me about that, and he would, and that's fine. I have no problem with that.
We have a whole spectrum here.
And that to me is like, this is where I come to the only solution is to burn it all down thing. Because like, you can't, I have not yet seen a way to do a little bit of it without inevitably doing all of it. And I think if we do all of it, we are somewhere awful.
Yeah, it's Pandora's box.
Yes. Yeah. And I think at this point, it's like, shut the box and set it on fire, and let's all just pretend none of this ever happened and everything will be fine.
David, would you feel more comfortable if it was like an app that you had to download? So you had to find it in the Play Store, you had to download it and sign in, and then you could do all of this stuff. Would that make it feel a little better?
A little, yeah. I mean, I think, Allison, to your point, the biggest pushback we get when we talk about this stuff is people being like, it's been possible to manipulate photos forever. And that's true. And Sarah Zhang wrote a great piece for us about this this week that I think really captures a lot of this. But like, in so many ways, the story of the tech industry is making a thing slightly more convenient and you actually change everything. Like what Uber did to the taxi industry was just make it slightly more convenient. Like the idea of things being fewer steps away from you and they become like a step change more popular is real. Like there's there's evidence of that everywhere you look. And so I think, if they made it an app that you had to download, I would be slightly less alarmed. If they made it an app you had to download that cost $700 and required like a master's degree to learn how to use successfully, I would also be less alarmed. I really do think that like the fact that it's a separate app right now is a good thing. I suspect, given the way that Google talks about this, that has much more to do with the fact that this is new than the fact that Google has taken some moral stance about AI.
Totally.
I don't think there's
agree.
any evidence to suggest that Google thinks it's a good thing for the world to keep this out of people's hands. Like nothing.
They want it in people's hands, right? Like to the point of their philosophy is this now.
Right. So why wouldn't Google find more and more ways to bring it forward? Like you're going to get to a point where you're like, hey, Gemini, take a photo of this, but insert a car crash into it, and it will produce that photo. The original photo that you take will include that. Like why won't we?
Well, you're
going to
have to actually say, but take a photo of this bicycle mangled next to a car with a dent.
No, it has that already. It's good. It can put a giraffe into the photo of my backyard. I could have a giraffe in my backyard. Like all it needs is the photo of my backyard, which is the easy part.
Right.
Like I have reached this point now where like I don't know what else we can do except just shut it all down, which is why like the bill in California right now is so fascinating, right? Because the question is like, who is responsible for when all of this was horribly wrong? And if it passes and we get down this road where all of a sudden the companies that make these tools are responsible for what happens with them, that gets it gets so messy, and we end up with a weird Section 230 thing all over again. Who is responsible for mean things that people say on the internet? But like, if Google were responsible for every single thing that Reimagine produced, you think Google would have launched this?
No.
Yeah,
not a chance.
The thing they told us when we were like, hey, so we've been able to use your tool to make all these like pretty disturbing things. What do you think about that? And they were like, oh, we have these terms of service. And that's a violation of the policy. It's like, okay.
It's worse than that. It's worse than that. The statement that they've given to everybody, including us, from Alex Morricone at Google says, we design our generative AI tools to respect the intent of user prompts, and that means they may create content that may offend when instructed by the user to do so. That says, in as many words, it's your fault, not ours.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It does.
We didn't do it. You did it. Guns don't kill people. People kill people.
Right. And I think they're coming at this from they're thinking, oh, we're just like Photoshop. Because to everybody who comments, that's true. Like Photoshop can do all of this and probably do it, and in many cases do it better. Photoshop is hard, and this is so easy. And Google is kind of ignoring that ease. Like they're happy to talk about it on stage. They're happy to talk about it in advertisements and in profiles and whatever. They're not happy to talk about it when we ask them.
Right. The ease is a feature, not a bug, unless you ask Google about how easy it is.
Yeah, and then they're like, well, yeah, that's not the problem. And it's like, no, that is actually the problem. You've increased access here.
Yeah. Yeah. And like it's
with
all
no
of this
safeguards.
is so weird to me because it is like, to your point, Allison, like some of the same stuff that Google is building to make it so that like the dark scenes that you shoot on your phone look better, which I think everyone agrees is a good thing, right? Like Night Sight is awesome and Night Sight is AI, right? Like that is what it is. How you stop that before it gets to I can insert unbelievably compelling lies into every single one of my photos. And I think the thing that Sarah wrote in her piece, which we'll link in the show notes, and I've gotten some crap for forgetting to link things in the show notes, and I'm very sorry, and I will do better from now on, is that so much of like life is just having photos, right? Like I have a leak in my ceiling. I take a photo and I send it to somebody. I got in a car accident a couple of weeks ago, and the very first thing I did was walk around my car and take pictures of it. What if you can't trust those pictures anymore? What if somebody can point to them and say those might be AI, and all of a sudden those pictures are meaningless? Like we are entering a phase where it's going to be so easy and only going to get easier to make this incredibly mundane stuff. Like we don't think about how much a part of our lives photos are. We talk a lot about politics and like really high stakes stuff, but what if the low stakes photos don't count anymore?
I was just realized the one thing we can still count on is all of the insurance companies are going to band together and be like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Because like that's the one where it's like, oh yeah, that's a lot of money for them. If David's just adding a bunch of dents to the car, like, give me more money.
Yeah, what if the insurance company can refuse my claim because they don't have to believe my photos?
Right.
Or it was shot on a Pixel 9. They're like, oh, we don't accept those.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, you might have stripped out the metadata. It's only one line of metadata. It's not that hard to do. People are more motivated to get around these things than they get credit for so many reasons. All right. Buy the Pixel 9. Just don't do any of that. Is, I think, the takeaway.
Be good. Don't do evil.
Yeah. Don't be a dick.
Yeah, weird. Don't be evil. Somebody
Right.
should really use that that's a good tagline for something.
Yeah, it rings a
to back it
bell.
up. All right, Allison, we got to take a break and we're going to let you go. We're going to come back and we're going to talk about a bunch of streaming shenanigans because there are endless streaming shenanigans. We'll be right back. All right, we're back. Richard Lawler is here. Richard, welcome.
Hey.
We've brought you here to talk about Chick-fil-A.
Like, are you a Nugs sandwich?
Spicy or not spicy? That's the question.
Sandwich only, no pickles.
Oh, okay. That's a strong order. What's your sauce?
Sauce.
Okay, touche. We're gonna get to Chick-fil-A because I have a game we're gonna play when we get to Chick-fil-A. But first, we're gonna do a brief segment called Alex Cranz. What the hell is going on here? And it's all about Paramount because somehow we have more Paramount shenanigans. Alex Cranz, what the hell is going on here?
Paramount really wants to be sold. Sharon Redstone's she's done with this business. She's ready to move on. David Ellis, another person who came up in the waves of wealth, wants to buy it. There was a lot of concern about how much Sherry was getting and how much the rest of the investors were getting financially. And this other guy said, hey, no, you got to look at my deal again. And so they're like, okay, well, we have to reopen things because we've got a lot of people who are really cranky. And also this is a good deal that he's offering. So we got to look at it. So they're doing like one more look. So things could still collapse. Paramount would very much like to be sold. They've already written down their biggest asset, which is the broadcast channels, because broadcast is fallen off a cliff in the last year. Just no ad revenue or anything. So it's a fun time over there. I'm glad I don't work at Paramount is basically the gist of it.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone's going to work at Paramount at the end of this.
Somebody will. Like this is a big studio with a lot of assets, and I would be very surprised if they were allowed to sell off all of those assets to the people who would want to buy them. Because there's a lot of companies just didn't get into the mix on buying this company because they didn't want the FTC coming around. And to be fair, they shouldn't be allowed to buy them. Like, I don't think Disney should be allowed to buy Paramount. But that just makes it a more difficult climate to sell this stuff.
Can we pass a law that makes it so the only people who can buy Paramount are people whose parents are obscenely rich?
Yes.
Because I think that would fix everything.
Yeah, like Elon Musk's daughter, you should buy this. But yeah, it's only rich people are allowed to buy it. We have no idea what this other guy wants to do with it. A lot of people that they didn't sell to previously was because they wanted to break it up. They wanted to just sell it for parts, and those would be very lucrative parts. But it is much more potentially powerful altogether.
Richard, I'm really enjoying the theory of a pro Nepo baby economy.
Yeah,
that we just demand we give things to the Nepo babies, but we demand that they spend all their money on those things. I really love this for them.
And I love this round of news because it brings back Ed Bronfman Jr., who I didn't know was still in the league at all.
Who is this person?
He is, if you're like me and you've read like all of the books about ESPN and Disney and all of the Disney wars, and these guys have all the fun and all these kind of entertainment industry books about the 90s and 2000s, and I guess going back to the 80s, he's one of those figures who pops up. He is the heir to a liquor fortune, I think, and has bought his way into media companies all over the place, and is currently I think a chairman of Fubo.
Chairperson of Fubo currently.
Fubo famously now in a gigantic fight with most of the rest of Hollywood over venue sports. There's just only 12 people in Hollywood, I think, is like the main important thing to remember, is that this is a tiny industry and everybody has worked everywhere, and all the companies are run by the same 4 people.
Heir of the Seagram fortune. He really has been, like, he was CEO of the Warner Music Group. He's just been he's very involved with Seagram, chairman of Vivendi Universal, like did a little Broadway producing. Man loves media.
I mean, but like, bigger picture, it really seems increasingly like right now, like Netflix is good. Just be a Netflix. The games thing seems to be slowly starting to work. That's like Netflix is fine. Then everybody else is just pure anarchy right now. Like Disney is starting its succession plan again, canceling shows. Alex, the other thing I need you to explain to me is why everyone was so sad that The Acolyte got canceled. Everybody, as far as I know, hated The Acolyte to the point where I didn't even watch it because everybody thought it was bad. But then everybody was up in arms that it was canceled this week.
Yeah, I would like, if we want to pivot over to Acolyte, the reason people are mad about that is because the same thing happened with the Marvels. The same thing happens with any woman or person of color led property that is really attractive to nerds. You get a small portion of people who are just tired of nerd shit. And I love you all. Live your lives. You get a larger person of people who are nerds and want nerd shit, but they only want it if it looks like them, and they tend to all be white dudes. And those people are really good at being really, really loud. So the people who are just like, I'll watch this, they're not out there tweeting. But in the case of The Acolyte, people are really mad that it got canceled because they're really concerned that they're going to do the same thing they did to Willow, which was excellent and shouldn't have been pulled from the service, but nobody watched it. And they're afraid that they're going to pull this one from Disney Plus because nobody watched it. Like that was the thing. It just got bad ratings. Nobody watched it.
So was it good though?
Yeah.
Because I'm super sympathetic to that entire argument. If
it
the
was
show
all
is good.
about what if these twins who are really powerful in the Force, one of them goes and becomes fully Jedi, then realizes Jedi suck, and then slowly gets seduced to the dark side by Manny Jacinto's arms. And like,
I'm really enjoying Richard's
want to
face
watch
as you
that?
described it.
Why wasn't that the trailer? I would have watched it.
Right? Like it really is like the whole time he's like, oh no, I've removed my shirt and I'm flexing right now. Now I've got a lightsaber. And you're like, yeah, this rules. And we were robbed, basically.
Yeah, that is the single most compelling argument for The Acolyte that I've ever heard.
I think that's if
like
they had
the
just
Acolyte
shown his
paid
arms.
for that second or third or however many seasons they've had of the Bounty Hunter show,
right?
Of Boba Fett, because we got kind of tired of Star Wars after a point.
Yeah, and when we see this again and again and again, there's the combat. Like you can have fatigue, you can have angry, racist, sexist fanboys. You can't have both. And right now they have both. So anytime there is a project that doesn't speak to those racist, sexist fanboys, that just there's the bottom drops out of the audience because everybody else is tired of it. And even if you say, no, this time it's good, you have to say it in a very specific way. And they struggle to market it over and over and over again. Because I keep seeing now everybody's like,
you need to have enough volume to drown out certain things.
Yeah.
And if that volume goes away, suddenly that's all that's left.
Right. And we saw this, like I said, we saw the exact same thing with the Marvels. And now everybody's like, hey, did you see the Marvels? That's actually really good. And I'm like, yeah, it was really good. Just everybody was tired of superheroes when it came out. So, and it did have some stupid parts. But everybody was mainly tired of superheroes. And then a whole bunch of other people were like, but it stars girls. That's exactly what you sound like when you complain like that, people. Just to be clear, I want to insult you.
Every time we hear that now, just take that clip and just play it in response to whoever tweets mean things about these shows. But like this is all part of the sort of bigger, like what is going on inside of these streaming services thing that I keep coming back to is like, it just seems like outside of Netflix, which I think can afford to just throw everything at everybody and some of it will stick and it'll be fine. Disney can't afford to make this many bad Star Wars shows that people don't watch. And now Disney is like back in succession planning. They just announced the new succession committee for whoever is going to next be fired by Bob Iger 2 years after they're given the job. Like, I don't know. There's so much just like swirling chaos inside of all of these things.
I would say that Hollywood is in one of its most difficult moments, like more difficult, the pandemic, particularly all these streamers and stuff. Because when you look at when you look at who's in the field, you got like Apple, they don't care. They can fart out these things and they'll do fine. So you've got Apple. They don't make a whole lot of shows. They put a lot of money into them, but they don't make a whole lot. And they're struggling in the movie business. All of their movies are bombs, but their TV shows, great. Get a lot of reviews. But whatever, Apple. You've got Amazon. Actually the second largest streamer, and they're doing just fine. They've got sports rights now. They have advertising, so you don't even have to pay for it really. You can just like pop in and start watching. Like Amazon's doing fine, and they also are Amazon. So they've got all of this other stuff to make money for them, like AWS and Amazon. And then you have like the non-tech ones. You have Warner Brothers, who just wrote down all of their broadcasts. Networks. You have Paramount, who just wrote down all of their broadcast networks. You have Disney, who didn't and probably will soon write down all of their networks. And that's because all the broadcast stuff was supporting everybody and supporting them through the streaming moment, because they knew broadcast was going away and streaming was coming. And they're like, okay, we have to get through this. But this broadcast died faster than they expected. One of the few exceptions is NBC, Peacock. They're also struggling, but they did a really good job with the Olympics.
They did.
They showed what happens when a really smart broadcaster programs really well on these platforms. And it worked. And they did really, really well. How long that lasts, how quickly those people churn, that's all other story.
Yeah, the Olympics are unfortunately over.
Yeah,
which is
you get 2
tough
weeks.
times for Netflix.
Yeah,
or tough times for Peacock, rather.
Yeah.
No one else is watching Diamond League. We're not coming back for the Paralympics. They're about to start. Come on, let's go. Let's keep this going.
There's that new
Let's keep this
Steph Curry show on Peacock that seems like it's awful. Like really great times for Peacock.
I think the thing about Netflix is it turns out that basic cable for $15 to $20 a month is a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
That's it.
And Netflix did it, right? Like I think more than people realized, certainly more than I realized until very recently, Netflix can be that. Right? Like if you have a reasonably steady run of very good things and then just an infinite supply of like background noise, you can win. And for $20 a month, that's essentially what Netflix has. Like, and as long as it keeps having those periodic wins, which it continues to do, it's going to be very hard to supplant that.
And it's gotten a lot more savage about its cancellations too.
Yes.
Right? Like it is not afraid. Disney Plus was pretty timid about canceling things, which is why we got 3 seasons of Mandalorian and the entire season of Boba Fett. Why? But like Disney's gotten a little more aggressive about it, and Disney's pulling from Warner Brothers playbook of like, okay, the show doesn't get a lot of views, we're going to pull it. We are going to then scrap the entire show because we don't want to have to pay the tax. We just want to write it off as a loss. That's what happened with Willow. That may be what happens with The Acolyte, and I think that's where so much of that tension is, because you like archival purposes. Sometimes people do like the show and they just want to watch it, put it out on DVD, but that's expensive and they don't want to do it.
Well, and I think that the thing you said about the broadcast piece of it is really important, because the bet for so long was that they could just invest and lose money and make mistakes and have it all go wrong, because this like money fountain on the other side would pay for it. And it would go down. And it seemed reasonably like it might be linear, that as more people streamed, fewer people would watch linear TV, but mostly that would be 1-to-1 and everything would be fine. And that is not even remotely how it has turned out. And so all of a sudden it's like, oh, this money that we thought we had to invest in bad Star Wars shows, we actually don't have at all.
Yeah.
And it's like, that makes you panic on 2 levels, because 1, we've spent this money on a bad Star Wars show, and 2, we didn't have the money in the first place that we thought we were going to have. And so you just end up in this, like, it feels like a spiral towards ugly places.
That's why you're hearing a lot of talk in Hollywood right now, is that like David Zaslav is going to get fired from Warner Brothers because he's getting paid so much money, and he just wrote down all of their broadcast stuff. And his whole big plan was, which I thought was a good plan when he first did it, was let's merge it all together. Let's make this super app. Let's like put our broadcast on here. And they just haven't done it. And when they have done it, it's been like, did you guys watch CNN on Max ever? Am I the only one that does it? It does you like 3 minutes of CNN, and then it cuts to like 10 minutes of Medicare additional supplemental Medicare insurance commercials.
To be fair, that's just CNN. You just described CNN.
Is that just CNN?
Yeah.
I guess I never watch it the old-fashioned way, but I was like, oh my God, I had to turn it off. I can
This
run
is
to
why. So
yeah.
the other day, Alex comes storming into our Slack going, have the CNN chyrons always looked this crazy?
That's right. I did just start watching CNN last week. Hi, my name's Alex Cranz.
This makes sense. Well,
It's bad.
I have great news for you in these trying times in streaming, which is that Chick-fil-A is here now. And Chick-fil-A will fix it. Richard, can you just quickly explain what Chick-fil-A is doing here? And then I have many roads for us to go down, but can you just tell us what we know so far?
Okay, first of all, no, I cannot. Second, what we know so far is that Deadline said that Chick-fil-A is working with a number of production studios and traditional studios to create original shows for a streaming platform that they say they want to launch this year. Something that a lot of people may not be aware of is that the owner of Chick-fil-A, the Cathy family, they also were key to the foundation of Trilith Studios, which you may not know necessarily by the name, but you know by what they make there, which is the Marvel movies.
Really?
In Georgia. A massive production lot where a lot of things are made.
Yeah, Georgia's got the good discounts if you want to shoot there.
Yeah.
And the good studios. It's not just Tyler Perry.
Okay, so I have done in the last 24 hours what I would say is too much research on Chick-fil-A and its entertainment aspirations. Can I share a little bit of what I've discovered with you?
Yes.
Chick-fil-A has a whole separate brand that it calls Penny Cake. And Penny Cake, why is it named Penny Cake? I could not tell you. But it's basically a brand full of like family-friendly games and activities. It has a bunch of like puzzles. It has a bunch of those things where you like pull a prompt out of a bag and you talk about it as a family. And it's like, if you squint at it, it's kind of a like thing to do around the table while you eat Chick-fil-A. But in general, it just seems like some executive at Chick-fil-A was like, I want to make puzzles. And they were like, all right, make puzzles, I guess. Chick-fil-A also, fun fact, has made content before. It made a series of shows called The Stories of Evergreen Hills that I would describe as like animated in the style of the Polar Express, but about like how to be a good person. It's like, what if the Berenstain Bears and Polar Express sort of smooshed together and was worse? You'd have Stories of Evergreen Hills. I encourage you to look this up on YouTube. A bunch of them exist. They're kind of weird and like, you know, Vacation Bible School-y in the sense that like they have a big moral lesson at the end and they want to teach you how to be a better person.
It's like VeggieTales.
Yeah. But so Richard, to your point, it's what's weird to me is that it's Chick-fil-A doing this. Like I've had to wrap my head around the fact that Chick-fil-A is not a restaurant. It's just a large company with a name, right? And companies do lots of things, some under their brand and some not under their brand. But this family owns an enormous studio, is well versed in the content business, and yet we're going to get like Chick-fil-A Plus as a streaming service. I doubt that's what it's going to be called, I should say. Like, I think it might be Penny Cake. I think they might come up with another brand, like whatever. But the idea of like Chick-fil-A, the restaurant, wanting to make content just does not make any sense to me. Am I overthinking this or underthinking this?
Did Chick-fil-A stop and say, why not, when they were thinking about sponsoring a bowl game?
I mean,
they did not.
Fair.
And does Chick-fil-A Plus make less sense than Hallmark Plus? If you think about it, why does a card company have a network?
Oh, I just figured it out.
So, okay, wait, but I'll give you that if Chick-fil-A wants to basically make worse Food Network. Then I'm in.
No.
Probably.
No, Chick-fil-A is going to acquire what the scorched remains of Chicken Soup for the Soul Entertainment in Red. They're going to acquire all that, and then they're just going to do Christian streaming service. Because they love Jesus differently than other people do, but they have their own opinion. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I love that they don't work on Sunday, but that's what they're going to do. They're going to do a Christian entertainment streaming service.
I think that's right. And as we've seen, that's a big market, right? Like Angel Studios is very successful.
I mean, it wasn't a big market for Chicken Soup for the Soul Entertainment.
No, But I would say they'd made a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, that's
that were not like if Chick-fil-A gets really big into selling DVDs at Chick-fil-A, I think we'll have a problem. But my guess is that's not
all
the story of Chicken Soup for the Soul seems to be it would have been a fine company if it were happy being what it was. It was trying to be 100 other things.
Totally. Yeah. But Chick-fil-A, that's about it. It's about to do. So
okay, so this is the game I just want to play for a few minutes here.
Okay.
You are now the head of content at Chick-fil-A. Congratulations to both of you.
Yes.
You are in charge of making a streaming service. A, you have to come up with a name, and B, you have to tell me at least 2 shows that you want to put on your streaming service. Alex, you go first.
Chick-fil-A for the Soul is the name of the streaming service. Chick-fil-A for FT. I don't know. I'm not going to do that. But Chick-fil-A for the Soul.
CFAFTS.
Something
That's not
like
great.
That. It's not great. This is work in progress. But I think that's where we're going to go. We're going to get a reboot of Touched by an Angel.
Ooh.
And
wait, that's good. That's actually very good.
And either a reboot or we're just going to get the rights to what was Little House on the Prairie.
Oh, okay. So just like sweet down-home family shows.
Yeah, Seventh Heaven will be there, but they're just going to like blur the dad's face out every time he appears on screen.
We'll just deep fake someone else into
else into his face. Yeah. Oh, but then we get the moment where the mom goes, "I smoked pot," and there's like an intense noise around her. Oh, it's going to be so good.
Okay.
Be like, I can't believe Chick-fil-A did that.
Richard, what about you? What are we doing? Chick-fil-A.
I'm going a slightly different direction. Okay. I'm launching Pacific Rim Network.
Oh.
Which is all Pacific Rim spinoffs all the time. Fortunately, there's already a stream of these in production. They've just continued making them.
Are there really?
Intensely. They've been developing these shows on and off. There's a new one in development. It was just announced last week. We've got content lined up for years. We're good. Pacific Rim Network. And there'll be like a resurrection theme every 3 episodes.
There are strong merch tie-ins. You can sell the robots in Chick-fil-A. We take over the Happy Meal business immediately. I love this. Okay, what are we calling the streaming network?
Oh, it's Pacific Rim Network. It's all Pacific Rim. Everything is Pacific Rim.
Okay. I love
it's all stories of Pacific Rim. We've got like The Big Short in Pacific Rim, like when people figure out where the monsters are going to attack, and they're like shorting the stocks of those companies. It's great. We cover all genres.
I'm going to have
remaking everything, but it's all set in the Pacific Rim world.
So Seinfeld in the Pacific Rim world.
Yeah, Pacific Rim Seinfeld.
Honestly, I'd watch that.
Sex in the City and Pacific Rim.
Everyone watch that too. It's like, oh my God, dating and giant monsters all the time. What can we do? All I've got is like deep fake Michael Landon. So
Joey and Chandler in the suits, just hanging out. This is great. All right, that's very good. Mine, in case you're curious, I'm calling the network The Sauce. And
delicious.
And we're doing like family friendly 1990s VH1, I would say. That's what I'm going after. So we're doing a bunch of like, one of the things Chick-fil-A is apparently doing is looking for like family friendly game shows. So I'm going with like all of the, you know, Christian music videos. People are going to play that all the time.
Just
we're going
jars of clay.
Just jars of clay everywhere you look. Some Switchfoot when we're feeling edgy. Lots of stuff to do. And then
little Creed.
And then it's just going to be a lot of like Great British Baking Show style competition shows where it's competition, but everybody's really nice to each other. And I think we're going to take over. I think I am going to absolutely dominate. And one show at least is going to be called My Pleasure, and it is going to be our tentpole show. I don't know what it is, but I know it's called My Pleasure.
It's actually going to be a remake of Red Shoe Diaries. We're just going to go really, really wild with that one.
As I say it out loud, My Pleasure might be like too sexy a show.
I was like, that's a little racy for Chick-fil-A.
Okay. Well, we have a lot to think about.
Chick-fil-A After Dark. Come on now.
Oh, that's good. We just steal Are You Afraid of the Dark from Nickelodeon, and it's just called Chick-fil-A After Dark.
The nugs are spicier after dark.
Okay, so we're accidentally inventing Chick-fil-A's porn network, which is good. This is the next.
We're helping.
The next phase of growth for Chick-fil-A.
Welcome to the entertainment business, Chick-fil-A.
All right, one more thing we should talk about before we get off of the streaming stuff, which is some interesting podcasty news. This is a podcast, after all. The big podcast news of this week, I would say, is that Alex Cooper, who hosts Call Her Daddy, and I think is probably like the second biggest name on Spotify after Joe Rogan, just in terms of like people who got giant, whatever, 8-figure deals to go be on Spotify exclusively, is leaving Spotify and going to SiriusXM. Signed a huge deal for like $100 million. Super big deal. And just strikes me as very interesting because, I'm sorry, it was $125 million.
So much money.
Yeah. And I just think it's fascinating because Sirius, also just recently, I believe it was Smartless that made a huge deal with Sirius. So we're in this weird moment where like the podcast business is kind of retrenching, and there was this huge boom, and then it all sort of pulled back. But then like Sirius in particular is out here just writing gigantic
This
checks.
makes sense. Sirius is always like 10 years late to the game.
If she were a radio host and she had hit one big deal and probably wasn't going to hit a big deal again at that network, and then went to Sirius for a lot of money, and probably none of us ever listening to her on Sirius ever again,
Yeah.
you wouldn't even think about this. You would just say, oh yeah, that's obviously what happened.
This is
So
the Howard Stern.
she did a Howard Stern is what you're saying.
Yeah, it's a Howard Stern.
Okay.
I hope she enjoys having her 12 listeners, all of whom are in their car, because they forgot to cancel the subscription in their car.
Okay, so this is part of the reason I actually brought this up, because I think the Howard Stern deal in a certain way made sense. It's like he's a big name, he's a big brand, and also I think the like demographic, especially age-wise, of people who love Howard Stern and people who spend a lot of time in their car listening to satellite radio is pretty solid. This one seems strange to me because Alex Cooper is much younger. The Call Her Daddy audience is presumably much younger. It's just a completely different generation. Like one of the reasons there was a great, I think it was Wall Street Journal story right before the Olympics about Alex Cooper as like the Gen Z whisperer. And like, do Gen Z people know what Sirius XM is?
Well, they're going to have to if they're going to follow her. I mean, that's
Apparently
why
it will still be available on other podcast platforms,
So they're just spending all this money to sell ads for Call Her Daddy,
I guess.
which is fine.
You know, if you can make the money work, then
Yeah,
fine,
that
I
just
guess.
seems like a ton of money if that's your play. But what do I know? Maybe
you
it'll
get
work.
3 months for $1.
But I just like, we're in this moment now where it's like Sirius and iHeart, which are like two huge radio players, are the only ones left spending money on podcasts. And I don't know if that is like a sign of things to come of consolidation, or if it's they're just the only ones dumb enough to keep writing these big checks.
I would say it's a sign of consolidation. I think these two companies have managed to persist. iHeartRadio with like an enormous monopoly on broadcast radio in the United States. Yeah, it's like they just want to try to stay alive as long as possible.
And they'll just write giant checks until there are no more giant checks. Right?
Yeah, until the giant check account is closed.
I mean, listen, Alex Cooper, get that money.
Your bag. Yeah, get the bag.
Absolutely.
Go for it. I love this for her.
Yeah. All right, we got to take a break, and then we're going to come back and do a lightning round. We'll be right back. All right, we're back. It's lightning round time. Richard, you're sticking around for the lightning round, which means you get to go first. What'd you pick?
My pick is Amazon canceling the Echo Show 8 Photo Edition's photo plan. Now, if you don't remember the Echo Show 8 Photos Edition because you're a normal person, it was the version of the Echo Show that they launched late last year. And it was the only one where you could make it display like photos all the time, like any other digital picture frame. Because the rest of them, I think they cycle other things in. You can't just make it just be photos.
Like
and they
Alexa
said, okay,
prompts.
we'll sell you an Echo that will just show photos on its screen. But you have to pay for it. The plan was like $2 for a month or 6 months or something like that. Anyway, no one bought this thing. And they stopped selling it months ago. And like recently, probably one of the only customers who had it got a message saying that, yes, we're going to cancel this. And you will no longer have this feature. It's going away. Goodbye.
So they're essentially just removing the whole reason you bought this device in the first place.
Yes. And it's just a regular Echo Show 8 now.
What? There's so many stupid things about this, Richard.
It just everything. Like that you have this smart device that can't do the thing that the dumbest digital photo frame that you can get on this shelf of any store in America, anywhere, can do with basically no processing power and nothing.
Is it a tech is there a technological reason for it, or is it just
No, it's just software.
we just want to push all of our different Alexa like advertisements and stuff on you. Stop looking at pictures.
Yes, they want their Echo and Alexa ecosystem to push you to buying other things and to seeing other things, and they want to control what you have. They don't want you to just use this digital photo frame, because then you wouldn't buy things from Amazon, which, as we heard, I think within the last month, is a big problem for Amazon's hardware business, is that they had done some kind of interesting accounting based on the idea that if you used Alexa and bought Echo hardware, you would buy more stuff from Amazon. And that is not what people do. They just used Alexa to turn off their lights and stuff and set reminders, and the kids ask it questions. They don't buy more stuff.
One time a roommate of mine bought, I would say like $40 worth of Cadbury eggs and then $100 of laundry detergent on my Alexa. And then I was like, why did you buy that? And she's like, I just wanted to see. And then we stopped using it ever for buying things. Because that was so many Cadbury eggs and overpriced detergent.
It's a pretty funny bit to pull at somebody's house, actually, to just walk in and just start yelling at the speaker to buy stuff and just see how far you can get.
Little kids do it all the time. They're like, buy me a Fire tablet.
Yeah.
And you're like, no, shut up. Yeah. Leave it alone. It's not for you.
Yeah, this is one of those things that I feel like is just like a failure on all sides. Because Richard, you're right that like for Amazon, I'm sure they lost money on every single one of these things that they sold, which is why Amazon doesn't want to just sell these things as a photo frame. And if you were to say, Amazon, why not sell it for more money so that you can make money on it as a photo frame? Some accountant within Amazon would tell you that that's not how business works.
Yeah.
I'm not an accountant. What do I know? But then to do something like this, presumably for a teeny tiny number of people, this is a thing I've just never understood about large companies. Like Google does this worse than anybody. They're like, we have a thing with not as many users that isn't making us as much money as we hoped. It costs us absolutely nothing to run, so we're going to cancel it. It's like, well, why? What are we accomplishing here? It's like when they took the MTV News archive offline. It's like, I'm pretty sure you can afford to keep mtvnews.com online. Like, I think it's fine.
Maybe it's like a tax write-off. Do you get a tax write-off if you just remove a feature? Like, do they get a tax write-off for that?
They're like, no, we did a bad job on that one.
Yeah, like Hollywood is always like, never mind, we're not going to release this movie. We're going to put it in the vault forever. Give me money,
Maybe.
IRS. And like Amazon's just going to give me money.
The thing at Google is that the reason why a lot of these products get canceled is because they can't find anyone to run them. Because if you're not running a project that's growing or going somewhere, then you aren't going to get that next promotion, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
It's probably a similar thing within Amazon. It's like, okay, so who wants to weekly check in and make sure that the photo subscription is still working? Nobody? Okay, canceling.
I guess. I don't know. Open source it. Like, get a user to do it. Like, hey,
Richard's just like,
will you check this box
out
once a week? Like, I don't know. And I get that I'm asking for something that's never going to happen, but it just always feels so silly to me when companies do this. It's such an own goal of customer relations and making people trust you as a company in the name of saving one person one meeting a quarter.
What, like, you think it's unreasonable that they spend $1 trillion on new AI chips, but they can't spend $100 to keep this running?
Exactly. What if you just put one of those chips onto keeping all of those customers happy? And then if you don't want to have this problem again, I don't know, make better products. There's an idea for you, Amazon. Cranz, what's yours?
Not related to Amazon. Mine is JBL. You remember last year they had the headphones that had a screen on them for the case?
Yeah.
They did it again, but the screen got bigger. It's a much bigger screen. You can pause. You can skip tracks.
I still cannot decide if this is the best idea ever or a completely pointless use of technology. I've never used a pair of headphones like this, so I genuinely can't say, but I can't decide.
I think you might be able to do more with this than you can do with Gemini because you can set alarms.
See, I was going to go the other way. I was going to say this is like a Books Poma, but a headphone case.
But you can set alarms. You can check text messages. Basically, if you didn't have some sort of smartwatch, you just pull this out of your pocket instead of your phone. That's probably likely going to happen.
That's actually better. I kind of like that. Like, I don't need a smartwatch all the time, but I'm going to be carrying my earbuds anyway.
They just look neat. I don't know. I'm one of those people where while I do feel we should have small, good smartphones, I also understand that people love cheap screens. And this is just cool. Like just slap a screen on it. Let's go.
My thing is I want all of this, but I want it to be like button controls that I can do just by like putting my hand in my pocket.
Ooh.
Right. Like I want the controls that are on my headphones in a lot of cases. I also want those on the thing in my pocket so I can just reach in and like whack it twice to go to the next
like
song.
actual physical buttons.
Yeah. Like what if my AirPods case just had 12 buttons on it?
That'd be nice. You
Sounds
just, but then people are like, "Why? What are you fiddling with in your pocket,
It's basically
David?"
just a little fidget spinner. And I'm just in there just clicking around all day.
I'm always like flipping the case open and close, and then I'm like, "Why don't I have any battery?" Oh, it's me.
One random thing. I always hate asking people if they've seen a thing on TikTok because the answer is no, because everybody has a completely different TikTok experience. But for like 2 weeks, there was one guy hawking a pair of Lenovo earbuds that also had a screen on the case. That was like every 5th video I saw on TikTok. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I've since quit TikTok. I'm away from TikTok right now because I was in Texas and I was getting a lot of political location-based stuff that I didn't want to see. But yeah, I remember that guy. He just was. I was like, oh, should we call these in?
He made a very convincing case.
Yeah. I was like, should I buy these? Lenovo is working on TikTok. Like that was the consistent thing. It would always be like these weird lifestyle products from Lenovo, and you're like, yeah, I didn't know you sold like a flashlight with the Lenovo brand
constantly.
on it. All
right.
right.
Is this the same Lenovo? Like Lenovo is definitely turning into one of those companies that just kind of makes everything.
Yeah,
like,
including weird e-ink laptops. Thank you, Lenovo.
Yeah, hell yeah. Just keep doing that.
I did not get that. The only thing I get on TikTok now is Cole Hocker edits of himself.
That seems better, I think. I
was
prefer,
like, I like that.
One of the features I've always wanted from TikTok is like a walk a mile in somebody else's shoes, where like I should be able to scan a QR code and just immediately get your For You feed for an hour. I think that would be so fun. And it's like, what a way to get to know somebody than to like quickly, and you have control over it. You have to share it with me. It's like sharing your location with somebody. I can share my feed with you. I think that would be so fun.
Why is TikTok not doing that as a speed dating app?
Oh, it's like on Hinge, but instead of having to like answer asinine questions about yourself, you just are like, here's my feed. Do you love me?
Like TikTok, this is how you're going to make money because you don't make money. This is how TikTok will make money is just doing this. This is great.
I love
dating apps.
That's a good idea. Yeah. Anyway, TikTok, you can have that for free. Sponsor the lightning round.
Speaking of lightning, what's yours?
Mine is, I just want to talk about the Sonos app again for a minute. Because this whole Sonos app story has gone from like ridiculous to sad to just weird and confusing. The most recent thing is that Sonos, which Chris Welch scooped last week, 2 weeks ago, recently, that the company was considering re-releasing the app. Patrick Spence said in a Reddit AMA this week that he was hopeful until very recently that Sonos could just re-release the app. But then they found that they couldn't, and that the old app would just make everything worse. And this is so brutal for Sonos. Like, it's just, I mean, let me just read you more of the quote here. So he says, the trick, of course, is that Sonos is not just the mobile app, but software that runs on your speakers and in the cloud too. In the months since the new mobile app launched, we've been updating the software that runs on our speakers and in the cloud to the point where today S2 is less reliable and less stable than what you remember. Like what he's saying is we broke everything so badly that we can't even go back anymore.
I have so many questions. How does
unreal.
How does that work? I mean, the S2 app was never very good. This is part of the thing where I'm like, I think the current app is getting a bit of a bad shake because it's not very good. But the last one was also bad and was constantly like disconnecting and forcing you to reset your entire home.
The last one, like it's a very funny Rorschach test of like, do you want all the features but kind of bad, or do you want slightly better but no features?
Right.
It's like, well, maybe Sonos, you should have just done, they're both bad, to be clear, not good outcomes, but
it's just,
this is just tough.
Yeah, this is
I just
awful.
don't understand how they got to the point of having an app that doesn't work and doesn't do what people want.
Right. Like I totally agree. And the fact that Sonos has had to walk it so far back as to basically acknowledge, and I guess to some extent credit to Patrick Spence for just saying out loud, like, yeah, we screwed it up. Like, they started by trying to do the, change is hard thing. And then they started by saying it took courage to do this. They actually used the word courage, which PSA to CEOs, don't use the word courage anymore. Just stop it. It doesn't help. It always backfires. We will use it against you. Just don't do it anymore. And now at least they have come all the way around and been like, yeah, we released a crappy app. This sucks. We're sorry. But also there's nothing we can do about it. Like, it's so bad. I feel for Sonos.
Oh.
And this is not a good moment to be doing this if you're Sonos.
They apparently, I didn't realize they got rid of their beta program, or they didn't make it as robust as it used to be.
There are a lot of things that went wrong in the process here, but ultimately, like, it should have been blindingly obvious that this thing wasn't ready. And what Chris Welch has said on this show is that because the headphones were coming and because there was such a rush to do that, there was this sense like we have to do all of this at once. Yeah. And holy God, did that backfire.
All to launch these headphones that, did anyone ask for Sonos headphones?
Have you seen a pair in the wild? I was actually just wondering about this the other day. I have not heard one person even ask about them since they came out.
Sonos was always like, it was a niche brand. I mean, I have a lot of Sonos speakers. It's always been a niche brand, and this like appetite to compete with the Apples of the world is like, don't do that.
Yeah.
They have so much more money than you.
But it's been a niche brand with like huge brand recognition, right? Like, I know a lot of people who would never own Sonos stuff, but kind of know what Sonos is.
Yeah, but I don't think it's like at the same stage as like Bose.
No,
like right?
Not.
Like I would say the only people who know who Sonos is, or that know what Sonos is, are people who are fairly online. And so it's got like really good online brand recognition, but
I think that even people who aren't online, they maybe didn't necessarily know what Sonos was, but they could be convinced to buy it.
Yeah.
Like, you could walk into Best Buy and you could say, man, you know what? I need to hear music everywhere in my house. And you say, I got something for you.
Yeah.
How much money? And I think that's exactly right. And I feel like what Sonos has done here is totally torch that reputation, right? This sense of like, Sonos was always too expensive, but also the best, right? Like those, and you can get people over too expensive in a lot of cases. It is just absolutely lighting on fire this reputation of it will do the thing that you want it to do exceptionally well, because it just doesn't anymore.
Yeah,
and the road to get back to that seems like it is pretty long at this point.
There's
for
still
Sonos.
Excellent AirPlay 2 speakers.
Yeah, again, I couldn't even tell you if I have the Sonos app on my phone, and I use Sonos all the time, and it still sounds great. I still love the speakers. Lord knows I will not be updating that system anytime soon.
I stopped using the app years ago because it forced me to reset my entire system one too many times. And once I got it working with my audio or with my TV, I was like, okay, I never touch this again. They're now AirPlay speakers.
Yeah.
Nobody tell me how I should just get a receiver and big bookshelf speakers. I know. It's expensive. I already spent the money. Shut up.
Yeah. I wonder if we're going to get to the point where like, if you have a phone and a Sonos system that is like all still running the old software because you never updated, that's going to become like a thing you can sell on eBay for way more money because it's the thing that still works.
I hope that happens so much.
eBay. You get in a van and you pull up on somebody and you say, hey man, we've got all these Sonos speakers that fell off a truck, and you sell them.
I got to work at Sonos. You interested?
Yes.
It's good. All right. We're just inventing businesses here on the Vergecast. That's what we do.
I mean, yeah.
All right. We have gone way over, as we are wont to do. We should get out of here. Thank you both for doing this. Tons of good stuff on the site this week. Becca Farsacci's final video for The Verge, which is very sad, about iJustine, just went up today, Thursday, as we're recording this. It's very good. We have a bunch of stuff on the Pixels, a bunch of stuff on AI, photo, chaos, all the streaming news we've been talking about. If you missed our whole Hydrogen series, both on the Tuesday Vergecast and the Lost Highway stuff we did on the site, that was great. Tons of good stuff on The Verge. It's like the end of August, and it still feels like tons of stuff is happening, which is bonkers. But here we are. We will be on top of the Chick-fil-A story. Do not worry. We will cover it as it happens. For now, that's it. That's the Vergecast. Rock and roll.
And that's it for the Vergecast this week. Hey, we'd love to hear from you. Give us a call at 866-VERGE11. The Vergecast is a production of The Verge and Vox Media Podcast Network. Our show is produced by Andrew Marino and Liam James. That's it. We'll see you next week.